That was the first thing that stuck in my mind, louder than anything coming from the ceiling. Her heartbeat, or maybe mine. Hard to say because the hallway between us felt too quiet, the kind of quiet where every small movement sounds bigger than it should. She stood framed by the doorway light, one hand still on the knob, as if she hadn't decided whether to let me in or change her mind. Her hair was a little out of place, like she had run a hand through it too many times. She did that when she was thinking, or worrying, or both. Can you just check? It sounded like something fell. She tried to make it casual, but her voice dipped at the end. A soft drop. I noticed those things. Maybe because noticing her had become a habit I couldn't break. I stepped inside. The house smelled like warm tea and rain-soaked wood. That clean scent old houses keep after a storm. She hovered close behind me, not enough to touch, but close enough that the back of my neck warmed. I don't mind, I said. My voice came out quieter than I meant. You never do, she murmured. Her hand brushed my arm as she pointed toward the stairs. Too gentle to be an accident. Too brief to be anything more. But it lingered anyway, like a print left on my sleeve. The stairway creaked under my weight. Behind me, she paused at the bottom step. I felt her eyes on my back, steady, thoughtful. I pretended not to notice, but my steps slowed. Are you sure you heard something? I asked halfway up. I think so. The pause between her words said more than the words did. Upstairs, the hallway stretched out dim and still. A faint draft moved the curtains. Nothing else. I checked each door, each corner. All fine. Quiet. Too quiet, maybe. She climbed the last step and stopped beside me. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Her breath lifted a strand of hair near her cheek. I forced myself to look away, then looked back too soon. She noticed. What? She asked. Not defensive, not playful. Curious. Nothing, I said, and she let out a small laugh that wasn't really a laugh. Her hand found the railing, but her fingers tightened as if she wasn't holding the railing at all, as if she wished she were holding something else. The hallway light flickered, a soft, uneven glow that left half of her face in shadow. It made her expression harder to read, more private. You get this look when you're trying to solve something, she said. I'm not solving anything. She tilted her head. You always are. The curtains fluttered again. I stepped closer to check the window latch, and she moved with me, almost unconsciously. Our shoulders touched. Lightly, barely, but she didn't pull away. I didn't either. You're warm, she said, then blinked as if surprised she'd said it out loud. I was just outside, I answered, though we both knew that wasn't why. Another silence settled between us. Not empty, not awkward, just full. Her eyes lowered to the floor, then lifted to mine with a kind of question she didn't voice. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I didn't call anyone else, she whispered. Before I could ask why, a sound broke through the hallway. A sharp knock, not upstairs this time, downstairs, at her front door. She froze, breath catching, eyes shifting toward the staircase. And I felt her hand graze mine, just once, before she stepped back. The knock at the door faded, leaving a strange echo behind it. She waited a beat, then another, as if hoping the sound might take itself back. When she finally headed downstairs, I followed a few steps behind. Her shoulders were tense, the kind of tension she carried when she thought no one was watching. No one was at the door, just wind, maybe a branch. She stood there a long moment anyway, one hand on the frame. Her fingers trembled, barely noticeable. Barely. You all right? I asked. She kept her eyes on the empty porch. I've been jumpy lately. Sorry. She wasn't the type to apologize for things like that. Not unless it came from somewhere deeper. Loneliness, maybe. Old hurt. She didn't talk about her past much, but bits slipped out over time, like seams showing when fabric wears thin. She had been married once. Years ago. The kind of quiet marriage that fades instead of breaks. A divorce with no shouting, no big moment. Just two people drifting until the distance became the whole relationship. I never asked for more than she offered. Still, sometimes I caught a look in her eyes, as if she was measuring how much to trust me, how much to trust herself. "It's strange being in this house alone," she said softly. "You're not alone," I said without thinking. She glanced back at me, a small, surprised tilt of her head. Then she stepped aside so I could enter the living room with her. The lamp cast a warm circle over the couch. Everything outside that circle felt darker than usual. "You get used to being by yourself," she said, sitting down. Her voice carried a slow honesty. "Maybe too used to it." I sat on the edge of the coffee table facing her. Close but not too close. The kind of space people keep when they're trying not to betray themselves. "You don't seem lonely," I said. "I'm good at hiding things." That answer stayed in my chest longer than it should have. Her eyes drifted over me for a moment, then dropped to her hands in her lap. I could see she was fighting something inside herself. A hesitation. A rule she had written for reasons she hadn't told me. The age difference sat between us, unspoken and heavy. Not shame, not fear, but a kind of boundary she kept brushing against without meaning to. Every time she stepped closer, she stepped back just as fast. "You shouldn't always be the one checking on me," she said. "I don't mind," I answered. "I know. That's what makes it worse." She reached up to tuck her hair behind her ear, but her fingers grazed my shoulder instead. Slow. Not intentional, but not quite accidental either. I felt her breath shift. She felt it too. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. "I know." She didn't finish whatever came next. Her voice caught, and her eyes lifted to mine with a softness that made the room feel warmer. I shifted closer, just enough for my knee to touch hers. She didn't pull away this time. A small, quiet moment. A shared breath. Her fingers curled, then slowly relaxed near mine. And for the first time tonight, she didn't step back. The space between us felt thinner than it had any right to be. Her knee brushed mine again. A slow shift of weight that didn't look like much but sent my pulse climbing. She noticed. Her breath hitched, just enough for me to catch. "I should," she started, but her voice trailed off, as if the end of the sentence had slipped through her fingers. Her phone vibrated on the cushion beside her. Sharp, sudden. She flinched. I leaned back a little, giving her space she didn't actually take. The screen lit up her face with a faint blue glow. A name flashed across it. "Don't," she whispered as if to herself. She flipped the phone over without checking the message. I didn't ask. She didn't offer. That silence sat heavy between our knees. "You get messages this late a lot?" I said quietly. No, a pause. "Not from him." She swallowed. I watched her throat move. Too closely. I shifted my gaze away, but not fast enough. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she said. Not scolding. Not teasing. More like a warning she didn't want to give. "How am I looking?" She hesitated. "As if you know things I'm not ready to say." For a moment, neither of us breathed. The house groaned softly in the wind. Her hand rested inches from mine on the couch, fingers curving, opening, closing, like she didn't know what they wanted. I did. Then footsteps sounded outside the front window. Slow. Passing by. Someone on the sidewalk maybe, but her body tightened in an instant. I reached out without thinking. My hand brushed her forearm, barely touching. She didn't move. Another set of footsteps. Closer this time. Someone approaching the porch. She stood, almost bumping into me as I rose with her. "Wait," she whispered, her hand gripping my sleeve. Firm. "Urgent." We froze together in the dim living room. Her shoulder touched my chest. I could feel her breath through my shirt. Whoever it was paused near the front steps. A shadow moved across the curtains. She leaned closer without realizing she had. Her forehead almost touched mine. Her fingers tightened around my arm. When the shadow finally drifted away, she let out a shaky breath that warmed the space between us. Her hand stayed on my sleeve even after the danger was gone. Or maybe that wasn't the danger she was worried about anymore. "You always show up when I shouldn't let you," she murmured. "You want me to leave?" Her lips parted, but the answer didn't come. Instead, she looked at my mouth for half a second too long. I stepped closer. So did she. Not a kiss. Not yet. But the kind of closeness that should have been a kiss. Her nose brushed mine. Her breath mixed with mine. Her fingers lifted toward my collar. Stopped. Fell again. She trembled just once. "This is a mistake," she whispered. "Then why aren't you stepping back?" I asked. She didn't. She stood so close our hands brushed again. This time neither of us pretended it was accidental. She exhaled slowly, almost touching me, held there by something neither of us wanted to name. Trying not to fall into the moment only pulled us deeper. The air between us felt tight, like the room had shrunk around the two of us and left nowhere to hide. She kept her gaze on the floor for a long moment, then lifted it with a kind of raw honesty she had been avoiding all night. "You don't understand what this does to me," she said. Her voice wasn't raised. That made it worse. Quieter things cut deeper. She stepped back, then forward again like her body couldn't agree with her mind. Her hand brushed her own arm, a nervous gesture she rarely slipped into. "What does it do?" I asked softer than I meant. She shook her head. "You're too young to put it into words the way you look at me." The words hit harder than she meant them to. Something strained in her tone. Something close to fear or longing or both tangled together. She broke eye contact first, but only by a second. Her hair fell across her cheek. I reached out without thinking, fingertips brushing it away. The moment my fingers touched her skin, she drew in a sharp breath. Not fear. Something else. Something she tried to hide by stepping back. But she didn't step far. "You shouldn't touch me like that," she whispered. "You shouldn't let me," I replied. That silenced her. Her breathing changed. Slow, then uneven. She pressed her palm to the wall as if she needed something steady. I moved closer. Not touching. Just close enough that she felt the heat of me. "You think this is simple for me?" she said. Her voice a whisper pressed into the dim light. "You walk in here, and I forget every rule I've made for myself." I swallowed. "You're not the only one confused." A quiet, humorless breath left her lips. "Do you have any idea what people would say if they saw us like this? Are you worried about what they'd say, or about what you'd feel?" Her eyes snapped up to mine. That hit something. I saw it in the way her fingers curled against the wall, in the way her shoulders drew in as if bracing for something she couldn't stop. "Don't push me," she whispered. "Then stop pulling me in." She exhaled like she'd been holding air for days. Our faces were inches apart, and the pull between us felt physical. She tried to look away, but her eyes kept drifting back. Drawn, reluctant, wanting. Her forehead dipped forward until it nearly touched mine. "This is wrong," she breathed. "Then tell me to leave." Her lips parted. No sound came. The storm outside whispered against the windows. The house seemed to hold its breath with us. She stepped closer until her chest brushed mine. Light contact. Barely there. Enough to make my pulse jump. Her fingers lifted again, this time touching my jaw with a trembling she tried to hide. I felt every point where her skin met mine. Warm, unsteady, real. "I shouldn't want this," she said. "You do." She closed her eyes. Her forehead touched mine at last. A small sound left her throat, almost a confession in itself. Then she whispered, "If I let myself, I won't be able to stop." I leaned in, her breath mixing with mine, her lips only a breath away, and right as the distance between us finally disappeared, a sharp knock rattled the front door. The knock hit harder this time, as if the house itself startled. She jerked back from me, breath catching, eyes wide. Her hand slid from my jaw slowly, fingers dragging like she hadn't decided to let go until the very last second. "Stay here," she whispered, but her voice shook, and she didn't wait for my answer. She moved past me toward the hallway. Too fast, too tense. I followed a few steps behind, the space between us full of everything we almost did. She opened the door only a crack. A voice pushed through the gap. "You didn't answer the first time." I recognized it. Her friend. The one who checked on her often. The one who had a key once, before the divorce, before she locked parts of her life away. My stomach tightened. "What are you doing here?" she asked, steady on the surface but tight underneath. "I saw a light on upstairs," her friend said, "and a guy walking around." A pause that lasted too long. "Did you have someone over?" Her breath hitched. A tiny sound, but enough. She stepped back, blocking the view of the living room with her body. "No," she said. Too fast. She never lied like that. Not to anyone. Her friend leaned in a little, trying to look past her. "Are you sure? Because I thought I heard." "That's enough." The words snapped out sharper than she meant. She tried to soften them, but it was too late. "I'm fine." Really. I could see her hands trembling from where I stood. She held the door tighter, knuckles paling. When her friend finally stepped back from the porch, concern pulled at her voice. "You've been on edge for weeks. If something's wrong, you can talk to me." Something flickered across her face. Guilt. Fear. Something deeper. Then she forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Thanks.
I'm okay. I'm tired.
Her friend didn't believe her, but left anyway. The door clicked shut. It sounded final. She stood there for a long moment, her back to me, fingers still clenched around the doorknob. "You lied," I said quietly. She flinched, not because of the words, because they were true. She let go of the doorknob slowly and turned, but didn't come closer. She stayed near the door like she needed it to hold her up. "I panicked," she said. "That's not why." She didn't argue. She walked past me into the living room, brushing against my arm on the way. Too close to be accidental. Too fleeting to be intentional. She stopped near the couch, shoulders tight. "You can't be seen here," she whispered. "Because of her? Because of me." The honesty in her voice hit harder than the knock. She pressed her fingers to her temple, then dropped her hand and looked right at me. "I wasn't scared she'd judge you," she said. "I was scared she'd see how I look at you." Her words landed between us, heavy and warm and dangerous. I stepped closer. She didn't move away. Her breath hitched as I reached out, fingertips grazing the inside of her wrist. Her pulse jumped under my touch. "I didn't realize you," I started. "You did," she cut in softly. "You just didn't know how much." Her voice wavered. I moved closer. She let me. Her free hand lifted halfway, then stopped in the air between us. "This can't stay hidden forever," she whispered. "Then let it be real," I said. Her hand finally touched mine, trembling, tightening, choosing. And whatever came next, neither of us could take back. She didn't let go of my hand right away. Her fingers tightened, then loosened, then tightened again, as if the decision lived in the small movements she couldn't control. The house was too quiet. Even the storm outside felt like it was listening. "Tell me," I said, "do you want me to stay or go?" She let out a slow, uneven breath. "I want both." Her voice cracked in the middle, not from weakness, from wanting something she'd spent years trying to convince herself she didn't deserve. She stepped back until her hip touched the arm of the couch, as if her body needed something solid behind it. The lamplight hit her hair, her cheek, the small tremor in her jaw. "You're asking for a choice I'm not supposed to make," she whispered. I moved closer, only a few inches, close enough that her breath warmed the space between us. Her eyes flicked to my mouth again, then away, then back, like she was fighting herself and losing. "I'm here," I said, my voice low, "but not if you're afraid of me." Her eyes softened. "I'm afraid of myself." She lifted her hand, hovering it near my face without touching. The almost touch made my skin tighten. She dropped it, frustrated. "This is wrong," she said again, but the words were a whisper, barely there. "Then lie to me," I murmured. "Tell me you don't feel this." Her breath caught. She didn't answer. I took one slow step forward. She didn't move away. She tilted her face up just a fraction, a small, involuntary surrender. Her hands brushed my sides, light as a breath, then settled against my shirt. I could feel the tremor in her fingertips. "You're too close," she whispered. "You pulled me in. That broke something open." She let out a sound, barely audible, like she'd been holding it for hours, maybe years. Her forehead dropped to my chest. Not fully, just enough that I felt the weight of her decision pressing against me. I shouldn't fall for you, she said, her voice muffled. You already did, I answered softly. She exhaled against my shirt. Warm, shaken, true. When she lifted her head, her face was inches from mine. Everything tightened. Her breath, her shoulders, the space between our mouths. Her hand lifted again, this time touching my cheek. Slow, careful, as if she needed to memorize the shape of me before she crossed the point of no return. I've tried to push you away, she said. I know. I didn't want you to see how lonely I've been. I saw you anyway. That did it. She closed her eyes, and I could feel the moment she stopped fighting. She leaned in, so close I could feel the warmth of her lips without them touching mine. The air felt heavy, thick, waiting. If we do this, she whispered, everything changes. Good, I breathed. Her hand slid behind my neck, gentle but sure. Her lips brushed mine. Not a kiss, not yet. Just a promise. Then she whispered the line that tipped the world. Don't leave. And for the first time, she wasn't holding herself back at all. She didn't pull back after she said it. She stayed right there, her forehead resting lightly against mine, her breath brushing my lips. The kind of closeness that didn't need anything more to feel real. Her fingers curled in the back of my neck like she was afraid I'd vanish if she loosened her grip. I've been scared of this, she whispered. I know. Not because of you, because of me. Because I didn't trust myself to want something good. Her voice trembled at the end. I lifted a hand to her waist, not pulling, just touching, asking. She let out a soft breath that sounded almost like relief, then leaned into my palm. You don't have to pretend around me, I said. She let out a quiet laugh, almost breathless. That's the problem. You see everything. She opened her eyes. No running, no hiding, no rules left to cling to. Just honesty. Careful, vulnerable, warm. The kiss didn't come yet. Not the real one. Instead, she slid her hands down to my shoulders and rested her head against my chest. Like she needed a place to settle after fighting herself for so long. I wrapped an arm around her, slow and steady. Her body softened against mine as if she'd finally stopped resisting gravity. You know the age thing still scares me, she said into my shirt. I know. You're starting your life. I've had mine go wrong more than once. Then let me choose what I want in it. She didn't answer right away. Her hand slid down my arm, fingers tracing the inside of my wrist. That small touch said more than her words ever did. She was letting go, letting herself want something she'd tried to push away. I don't want to break you, she murmured. You're not going to. You don't know that. I smiled against her hair. Then stay close enough to make sure. She let out a breath that wasn't quite a sigh, more like surrender. She lifted her head and looked at me with a softness that hadn't been there before. Something steadier than fear or longing. Something she didn't try to hide anymore. Her hand rose to my cheek. This time it wasn't trembling. It was sure. If you stay, she said. I want it to be real, not secret, not something I pretend isn't happening. Then let it happen. She stepped into me, closing the last space between us. Not rushing, not hesitant, just choosing. Her arms slipped around me and mine around her. The hug was warm and slow and deeper than anything we'd done until now. She pressed her cheek to mine, her lips brushing the edge of my jaw in a quiet, unspoken yes. When she finally pulled back, she kept her hands on my face, her thumbs brushing lightly along my skin. Tomorrow, she whispered, I want you here, in the daylight. No hiding. I nodded. I'll come. She smiled then, a small, tired, honest smile that looked like peace. She leaned her forehead to mine one last time, and the closeness felt different now. Not forbidden, not fragile, just real. And when her fingers intertwined with mine, she didn't let go. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?